After everything fell apart, I spent a specific amount of time in the wreckage before I did anything else. Not because I was paralyzed, because something in me understood that what was in the rubble was worth reading before it was cleared away. The career, the reputation, the version of myself that the public had known for decades, all of it in pieces at the same time. And in the middle of that, there was a specific quality to the silence that I had not felt before. Not peaceful, clear. For the first time in a long stretch, there was nothing left to protect, nothing left to manage, and nothing left to perform. It was the most honest I had been in years. The worst thing had made it possible. What I want to give you today is not a lesson about resilience, not a story about how everything worked out. It is something more specific, the mechanism, the actual way the worst thing operates on a life and what it produces that nothing else can produce. By the end of this, you will be able to look at the worst thing that happened to you and read it the way I eventually learned to read mine. Not with gratitude necessarily, with accuracy. Most men who go through a real collapse, a genuine, total, public kind of collapse, spend the aftermath trying to get back. Back to the career, back to the reputation, back to the version of life that existed before. And some things come back, but the men who only try to get back miss the specific thing the collapse was producing. They spend their energy on restoration when the situation was offering them something that restoration cannot provide. I spent time trying to get back, then I spent time reading what was there. The second was more valuable than I had words for at the time. Come back to this. On the day something breaks, that is exactly when this applies. The first thing, you have been grieving the wrong object. The grief after a real collapse is legitimate. I am not going to tell you it is not. The loss is real. The specific things that went, the position, the relationships, the version of the world that had been organized around a particular idea of who you were, those are real losses and they are worth mourning. But most men are not mourning what they think they are mourning. When I sat in the aftermath of mine, I eventually found the specific thing I kept returning to. Not the careers can be rebuilt. Not the reputation that is someone else's story about you and you never owned it. The specific thing I kept returning to was a version of myself, a particular confidence in my own invulnerability. The specific certainty that I was the kind of man who did not end up here. That certainty had been with me for so long I had stopped knowing it was there. It felt like bedrock. It was performance. What I was mourning was the performance, not the life underneath it. The life underneath it was still there. It had never been touched. But the performance had been so thorough and had been running for so long that I had confused it with the actual thing. Think about what a performance of invulnerability costs. You have to maintain it in every room. You have to maintain it when it is inconvenient, when it is exhausting, when something in you needs to say, I do not know how to handle this. You maintain it because the alternative, the version of yourself that admits limitation, that asks for help, that is genuinely uncertain, feels dangerous, like it would cost you something important. So you keep the performance going, and the cost of keeping it going accumulates quietly until the worst thing arrives and removes the option of continuing. The worst thing removed the option, not gently, but definitively. And what was left when the option was gone was not a lesser version of the man. It was the actual man for the first time without the layer of performance over him. Here is what I want to say directly. You are not mourning what you lost. You are mourning the version of yourself that could not have survived what comes next. That version had to go. Not because it was wrong exactly, it served a real purpose for a long time. But the man you are becoming requires something that the previous version could not carry. The collapse was the transition. The grief is real. The object of the grief is the version that was always going to be replaced by something more actual. What specific version of yourself are you still mourning? Not what you lost, who you lost. Because that is what actually hurts, and that is what needed to go. The second thing, the worst thing was not random, it was surgical. A man I knew, his name was Michael, built a business across 2 decades that was, by the time it failed, everything he had, not just financially. It was his identity, his daily structure, the thing he pointed people toward when they asked who he was. When it collapsed, he described the experience to me later as losing the floor. Not the furniture, the floor. The thing he had been standing on was suddenly not there. He spent a year in what he called survival mode, moving through the days, meeting the obligations, not building anything, just enduring. Then he had a specific moment, he described it, exactly where he looked at what was gone and asked not why it happened, but what it had been, what the business had actually been made of. And what he found, when he looked honestly, was that the business had been built to solve a problem he no longer had. It had been built by a younger version of him in response to fears and needs that had been real then. It had served its purpose. It had simply outlasted the purpose it was serving. He described this as the floor coming back, but different. Not the same floor, a different one, lower in some ways, more solid in every one. The collapse had removed a structure that was standing on a foundation it had grown past. What got built afterward was smaller initially and incomparably more real. Restoration looks like strength. It is the same ground. Building new looks like starting over. It is the only real option. What Michael eventually understood, and it took real time, not a week of reflection, was that he could not have built the second thing while the first thing was still standing. Not because of resources, because of identity. He was so thoroughly identified with the first structure that the second one, with its different shape and different foundation, would have felt like failure while the first one was still present. The collapse removed the identity as well as the business, and the removal of the identity, as painful as it was the specific thing that made the new one possible. What looked like the end was a demolition with a purpose. The purpose was not visible from inside the rubble. It almost never is. The worst thing that happened to you removes something. The question is not whether the removal hurt. The question is what the thing that was removed was actually doing. Was it load-bearing for the life you are supposed to build? Or was it load-bearing for the version of the life you had already outgrown? Those are different questions. They have different answers. And the answer determines whether what you build next is the same structure on the same ground or something genuinely new. Come back to this when what was removed is still fresh. That is when this question matters most. The third thing, the worst thing, was the most accurate data you have ever received. The comfortable life teaches you what you can have. The worst thing teaches you what you are. Before the brain scan, I had a specific picture of my own competence. A man who had made a career from difficult, demanding work, who had navigated complicated situations successfully for decades, who was, by the ordinary measures, operating well. The scan showed something different. The specialist sat down across from me and told me that what he was looking at was the worst case of that kind of damage he had encountered in practice. Rugby, a serious fight in my 20s, years of heavy drinking. Every decision I had made across a substantial stretch of my life had been made by a brain running on significant damage. My confidence in my own judgment during that period had been running on a compromised instrument. That information was devastating in a specific way that ordinary failure is not. It was not that I had done something wrong. It was that the thing making the decisions had been impaired. The data was accurate, and it changed everything. I want you to think about what the worst thing in your life revealed that nothing else could have shown you. Not what it took, what it revealed. Who left when leaving was possible? What stayed when staying cost something? How you actually behaved when the situation did not allow for the managed version of yourself. What you reached for when there was nothing comfortable left to reach for. None of that information is available in calm water. It is only available in the specific conditions the worst thing created. You paid for that information in the hardest currency available. The only way to waste the payment is to refuse to read what it bought. There's also a second category of information that the worst thing produces, not just what you are, what matters. Before a real collapse, most men carry 100 things as important. The job title, the specific car, the opinion of people who would not notice if they disappeared, the social position, the professional network, the accumulated small symbols of a life that is going correctly. After the worst thing, a man can count the things that actually matter on one hand, not because he decided to simplify, because the worst thing simplified for him by removing everything that left and leaving everything that stayed. What stayed is what was real. What left was available to leave. That distinction is the most accurate sorting of a man's actual inventory that he will ever receive. The comfortable life teaches you what you can have. The worst thing teaches you what you are. Those are completely different educations. The fourth thing. The man on the other side is smaller in some ways. This is not a problem. It is the point. Most men expect that surviving the worst thing will make them larger, more stronger, more resilient, more certain, more capable. And some of that is true. But the part that nobody says out loud is that the man who comes through a genuine collapse is also smaller in some specific ways, less certain of his own invulnerability, less convinced that he has things figured out, less armored in the particular way that makes a man impressive at a distance and unavailable up close. That smallness is not a side effect. It is the function. A man who has never been broken cannot reach a man who has. Not because he lacks the desire or the intelligence, because the man in the dark can feel from across a room whether the person speaking to him has been in the dark himself. He cannot always name it. He feels it. And if the speaker has not been there, the words, however accurate, however well-intended, do not land the same way. There is a specific quality of authority that only comes from having been in the place you are describing. The comfortable man does not have it. The broken and rebuilt man does. Stop here for a moment. Think about the people in your life who have actually reached you when you were in a hard place. Not the people who had the right advice. The people whose words got through. What did they have in common? Almost certainly, they had been somewhere difficult themselves. The difficulty was present in how they spoke, not as a performance of having suffered, as the weight of having been there. That is what the worst thing produced in you. That weight, that specific authority, the ability to enter rooms that the unbroken man cannot enter, to say things that land because they come from somewhere real. I want to be specific about what this looks like in practice, because it is not dramatic. It is not a man who performs his suffering or leads every conversation with what he has been through. It is quieter than that. It is a quality in how he listens, a quality in how he responds when someone is in a hard place, a specific stillness that communicates without words, I know what this is. I have been in something like this. I am not afraid of what you are telling me. A man who has that quality does not need to announce it. The people who need it find it. The man who is in his own darkness feels it across a room before the conversation begins, in the specific way that a person in pain recognizes someone who has been in pain and is not pretending otherwise. That recognition is worth more than any credential. It is worth more than any amount of good advice delivered by someone who has never been tested. That is the specific gift the worst thing is producing, not the strength to survive it, the capacity to be useful to people who are surviving something themselves. Here's the exercise. Take a piece of paper. Write down the worst thing that happened to you. Under it, write 3 things it revealed that you could not have known without it. Not 3 ways it made you stronger. 3 specific pieces of information it gave you that the comfortable version of your life could not have produced. Who showed up? What held? What you are actually made of when nothing comfortable is available. Under that, write the one thing you now carry that you did not have before it. Not strength in the general sense, the specific thing, the specific quality or understanding or authority that came from having been in that particular darkness. The thing that when you are in a room with someone who is in their own darkness allows you to be actually useful rather than simply sympathetic. Under that, write one person who is currently where you were during the worst thing, one person who is in the dark right now. What do you carry from having been through it that this person needs? Not what you know about surviving it in the abstract, the specific thing you carry. Write that down. That paper is the inventory. The inventory was produced by the worst thing. Everything in it cost something real. The payment was already made. The question is whether you pick up what it bought and use it or leave it in the rubble. The worst thing did not happen to you. It happened for you, but only if you use what it produced. Listen to this again. When you are tempted to treat the worst thing as only a wound, that is exactly when this section needs to be heard. The 5th thing. Some things only come alive through destruction. There are certain trees. The lodgepole pine is one whose cones are sealed shut by resin and remain sealed for years, sometimes decades. The seeds are viable, the tree is alive. But the seeds cannot release until the resin melts, and the resin only melts at temperatures produced by fire. The grove that follows a forest fire in lodgepole pine country is one of the most specific and complete regenerations in nature. The fire that looks like the destruction of everything is, from the seed's perspective, the specific event it was waiting for. Without the fire, the seed stays sealed, the grove never comes. The Passion of the Christ was sealed in me for a long time before it came out. I had been thinking about it, reading about it, feeling the weight of the story for years before the collapse. It was there. The desire to make it was real. But I was operating inside a specific structure, a career built on studio relationships, institutional approval, the managed version of myself that the industry had a relationship with. That structure was not hostile to the project. It simply could not hold it. The project required a man who was not inside that structure. It required a man who had already lost the thing he was afraid of losing. The collapse removed the structure. Every studio said no. My own money, my own conviction. No permission required and no approval available. What came out of that specific condition that cleared ground was different from anything I had made before. Not because I had become more skilled, because the fire had released what the structure had been sealing. I want to ask you directly, what is still sealed in you? What has the worst thing made possible that the comfortable version of your life was preventing? Not by malice. The comfortable life does not seal things maliciously. It seals them the way the resin seals the pine cone, as protection, as preservation, as the necessary condition for waiting. The fire removes the condition. The seed releases. The passion was not the only thing that came from the clearing. The clearing changed the shape of everything that followed. Because a man who has been through the fire and not been destroyed by it carries into every subsequent decision a specific piece of knowledge that the unburned man does not have. He knows what happens on the other side. He knows that the thing that looks like the destruction of everything is not always that. Sometimes it is the fire the seed was waiting for. He has been the seed. He knows how it feels from the inside. That knowledge changes how he approaches difficulty, not with recklessness, with a different relationship to what is at stake. The man who has been through the worst thing knows that the worst thing was survived. He does not know what the next worst thing will look like, but he knows the shape of having been through something and coming out. That shape is in his body. It is available to him in ways it is not available to men who have not been there. What got cleared by the worst thing, not just what was taken. What is now possible that was not possible before? The sixth thing, the last one, the one that carries the most weight. The worst thing that happened to you was an appointment. I want to be careful with this because it is easy to say cheaply, and I am not saying it cheaply. I am not saying the suffering was good. I am not saying it happened for a reason in the sense that the suffering itself was the point. I am saying something specific, that the life a man is supposed to build and the work he is supposed to do and the people he is supposed to reach that assignment requires a specific preparation. And the preparation is not classroom learning. It is the particular education of having been through the thing. My father Hutton came back from Guadalcanal carrying something he never named in words. He survived things at that island that he never described to his children, never described to my mother, never described to anyone as far as I know. But what he carried back was present in every room he walked into for the rest of his life. Not as a wound, as a specific weight. The weight of a man who had been appointed to something terrible and had not been destroyed by it, and who understood, without ever saying it, that the appointment had produced something the untested man could not carry. He transmitted that, not through speeches, through the ordinary quality of how he moved through the world. His children absorbed it, not the story. They never got the story. The weight, the specific quality of a man who has been through something and knows what remains when everything else is gone. I spent years not understanding what I was absorbing from being around him. I could feel it without being able to name it. He was not an easy man. He was not a warm man in the performed sense. He was simply present in a way that most people are not entirely there, entirely himself, entirely clear about what he was building and what he was not willing to do. The war had produced that clarity, not as a gift, as the specific result of having had everything that was not essential stripped away by something he could not control and had to survive anyway. He came back from Guadalcanal and built a life, 11 children, a particular kind of faith, a specific directness about what he believed that never moved based on what was acceptable to believe. He was a man whose worst thing had produced a man the worst thing could not produce without being what it was. That is the appointment. The worst thing produced a specific man. That specific man had a specific job. The job could not have been done by the comfortable version. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He was not writing from comfort. He was writing from a life of near constant difficulty, wars, deaths, betrayals, an empire that required him to be something he was not always capable of being. He was writing from inside the worst things, and what he understood was that the obstacle and the path are not separate. The obstacle is the path. The worst thing and the work you are supposed to do are not separate. The worst thing is the preparation for the work. He also understood something about transmission that took me a long time to see. He wrote every night not because it produced anything for anyone else, because it kept him honest about who he was in the moments when nobody was watching. Not the moments he performed on the stage of the empire, the ordinary moments, the dinner, the morning, the small decisions that compounded over time into the character of the man. And the character of the man, not the position, not the titles, not the victories, was what got transmitted. His children received it. The empire received it. The centuries received it. What he was in the quiet moments was what lasted. And what he was in the quiet moments was shaped by what he had been through. Every man who was ever used for something real was sent through the hard thing first, not randomly, specifically. The preparation matches the assignment. The scale of the worst thing is usually proportional to the scale of what follows it if the man carries it correctly rather than collapsing under it. This is not a comfortable idea. It implies obligation. If the worst thing was an appointment, and the appointment was proportional to what follows it, then the man who has been through something significant is not simply someone who survived. He is someone who was prepared, and prepared men have a specific responsibility that unprepared men do not have, not to perform the preparation, to use it. The men who came back from Guadalcanal and built families and transmitted something real, they did not do it by explaining what they had been through. They did it by being what the island had produced. Day after day, in the ordinary moments, being the man that came back rather than the man who went in, that consistency over years is what transmission actually is, not a speech, a quality. Present every day, built by the hard thing, available to everyone who came near them. That is what the worst thing built in you, not a story to tell, a quality to live. You were not destroyed. You are still here. The appointment is not finished. The inventory exists. Use it. The fact that you are still here after the worst thing is not an accident, and it is not luck. It is the evidence that the appointment is not over, that what the worst thing produced in you is still owed somewhere, to someone, in some room you have not entered yet. Most people who hear this will take some comfort from it and then go back to treating the worst thing as a wound. That is the easier position. A wound asks only to be survived. An appointment asks to be fulfilled. But some of you already know. You have been carrying the weight of it for a while, wondering what it is for, wondering when the use becomes clear. It becomes clear when you stop treating the worst thing as something that happened to you and start treating it as something that equipped you. There is a specific difference between a man who has been through something and is still carrying it as damage, and a man who has been through the same thing and is carrying it as material. Both carry the weight. The weight is the same. What differs is the relationship to it. The first man is burdened by it. The second is armed by it. The first man would give it back if he could. The second man would not because he wanted what it cost, but because he understands what it produced. And what it produced is not available by any other route. The distance between those two men is not time. It is a decision, a specific decision to look at what the worst thing produced, not what it cost, what it produced, and claim it. Not perform claiming it, actually claim it, name it, use it. Most of you listening to this have already paid the cost of what you are carrying. The payment was made. The inventory exists. The only question is whether you pick it up and use it, or whether you leave it in the rubble and call yourself someone who survived something. Put this on when the weight of the worst thing feels only like a wound. That is the day this matters most. Write down what the worst thing produced that only having been through it could have produced. Keep that paper. That is your inventory. That is what you owe. The worst thing that happened to you was the best thing, not because suffering is good, because what it built in you is something no comfortable life produces, and what it built in you is owed. Use it.